Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's session, where we're going to talk about the 4 pillars of a profiling session. I'm Joel Markwitt with Antonia Dodge here from Personality Hacker. We're glad you're with us tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about what a profiling session looks like, talk about the elements of that, and then we want to share with you an opportunity for you to join our next profiler training class coming up in a few months. We're going to go over the details of what that class looks like, how you can join, what it would be like for you to join, and give you the best information for you to make a good decision, and invite you at the end to actually make that decision and apply for the class. So
in this session, though, we want to give you a sneak peek of what it looks like to be part of profiler training. And we also want to give you a piece of content to go away with. So regardless of whether or not you end up joining us in this next profiler training course, we want to be able to make this a valuable use of your time and also give you a little bit of the formula that we're using in profiling sessions. Now, we developed this model of profiling over the course of, well, it was a very busy week. We went to a live event that was teaching personality types, and they were teaching it okay. This is about a decade ago. And during the course, I ended up being invited up on stage to talk a little bit about cognitive functions, because this was back in a time period where cognitive functions were still not something that literally everybody in the type community was talking about. It was still kind of a buried piece of information. In fact, afterwards, somebody who had studied Myers-Briggs for 30 years said, well, you've mined the gold out of Myers-Briggs. And I was shocked that they hadn't heard of cognitive functions, because it seemed like such a foundational component to the model. So I got a bit of a reputation, and people at this type convention that were learning Myers-Briggs and Enneagram came up to me to ask me about their personality type. What is their Myers-Briggs type, if they had any questions? And over the course of the next 4 days, I barely was in the seminar at all, because I ended up profiling over 100 people in 4 days. It was insane. Like, people just kept coming up to me. And as an ENTP, of course, I realized that this was going to be happening the next few days. And so I ended up creating a very quick and dirty formula for helping profile people. Well, once I created that, then it was a matter of test iterating it, which is what I did over the next couple of years. After that event, I took the formula that I had created, and over the next couple of years in coaching sessions and in doing basically profiling sessions with people, I took the model and I test iterated until we came up with what you're going to see, which is the 4 pillars of a profiling session. So we're going to walk through what we believe are sort of the pylons of this formula, the 4 things that must go into every profiling session. What's nice about this is that even if you're just doing, typing casually, anytime you engage in a conversation with somebody and try to figure out their type, we recommend at least having a bit of these 4 elements in it, so that you can, ensure that you're going through it in a manner that includes the other person in the process, that you're not falling for biases, that you're doing some test iterate on yourself and making sure that this is not just like a quick hit of like, oh, I know what your type is, and you may or may not be accurate, but really looking for ways to vet yourself as the instrument, not just using, of course, online tests and that sort of thing. When you're doing typing or profiling, you become the instrument. So how do you hone yourself as the best instrument possible? And that's what these 4 pillars are meant to address.
So before we get started, some people have to leave early sometimes. They can't stay all the way to the end, where we give out our invitation to join. But if you are interested in joining profiler training here at Personality Hacker, here's the link, personalityhacker.com/profiler training. You can find out all the information about the course there. I want to give it to everybody early in case you have to go early, so you at least have that link to check out as we get into some of the content, and just want you to have that before we get going.
Yeah. All right. So the first pillar is always in building rapport. Now, this might seem like a no-brainer. If you're talking to somebody, of course you want to build rapport with them, right? But there are 2 actual components to rapport building in a profiling session. It's not just a matter of the person likes you and you like them. That's a very important thing to establish early on, because the more that they like you and the more you're in rapport with them, the more they're going to offer about themselves. But there's actually 2 styles of rapport. And if you don't have both of them dialed in, you might actually end up skewing your results, because the other person is overly relying on the first kind of rapport we'll get to, and not enough of the second. The 2 different styles of rapport are energetic rapport and data rapport. Energetic rapport is that feeling when you're just vibing with someone, right? You like them, they like you. It opens up the conversation. It makes sure that the other person feels good in your presence, and that they're that they feel like they can tell you honest things, right? If you only have a form of rapport that's based on maybe social convention or people being polite, unfortunately, what ends up happening is that they tell you what they think you want to hear, particularly certain personality types. The ones with extroverted feeling or harmony have a tendency to do this more than other types. They end up wanting to maintain the energetic vibe with you or the social face of rapport. And sometimes they'll tell you what they think you want to hear. But of course, in a profiling session, you don't want to hear what you want to hear. You want to hear what they have to say authentically and honestly. So getting a really good measure of energetic rapport ensures that you're vibing with the person, but that you're not getting them to a place where they're just being agreeable. Mm-hmm. The way to do that is to have this element of data rapport as a ballast. Now, data rapport ensures that what you're saying to them, the language and thoughts you're using, are being fully understood by them and vice versa. It also allows you to take notes and remember details of what they've said without losing that energetic vibe. It doesn't rob from the energetic vibe, but it also adds on a component of ensuring that they're not telling you what you want to hear because they're confused, right? Or they're not sure what you're saying. Both of these elements of rapport are very important to basically create a container for the profiling session.
Yeah, energetic rapport is really about trust. You're building that trust through the energy exchange. And data rapport is really about understanding, creating the understanding between each other. And in profiler training, we really work on both of these elements because one is like, usually it skews, you're going to be better at one of these than the other. You're going to be better at energetic or data rapport. And it's usually the other one you need to work on as far as how you show up to a session.
So the first pillar is the rapport building. And of course, in profiler training, we teach you how to develop both energetic and data rapport. The second pillar is the interview. Now, this is what most people think of when they think of a profiling session. What are the questions you're going to ask? What information are you going to get from them? And in the interview, one of the best things you can do, best gifts you can give to yourself, is have a very solid opening question. Now, this allows you to do both question style interviews and also what we call conversational profiling. Now, conversational profiling is something that we feel comes later in the process. It's best to start out using questions, even sometimes what's called forced choice questions, which are A or B, and then allowing them to do something that they can't do in an online test or maybe an instrument. They can't give the person context. They can give you context though. So it's best when you're doing an interview and starting out to ask very simple questions and allow people to give you the context around them. Conversational profiling, which is where everybody wants to immediately jump to, unfortunately can give you lots of red herrings if you're not sure 100% what you're hearing. What's nice is to start the interview out though with a launching pad question that gives you lots of different places to go. So you can choose to either go to forced choice questions or you can go to more conversational styles. But that first initial question will give you tons of content. What we've chosen to teach people is something that we call the flow question. And that is this: what do you love to do so much? The only reason you stop is because you're exhausted. Otherwise, you go on indefinitely. The flow question is really intended to draw out a couple different things. The first one is the majority, not everybody, but the majority of people will answer using their dominant cognitive function or the driver in the car model, followed by, interestingly enough, their inferior or 3-year-old function. The reason why is most people use a 3-year-old function activity to detox. Also, they're looking for opportunities to use their driver cognitive function as often as possible. So interestingly enough, if you ask the flow question, like probably I'd say 4 out of 5 times, you're going to get an answer that will help lead you to their dominant driver or their 3-year-old inferior. Once you've got that set, it becomes a little easier to go down the road of what their auxiliary co-pilot or 10-year-old tertiary functions are. And so this is a fantastic opener. The other thing is it will give you a list of things that you can go back to and ask the most important question in your interview, which is why, all right? The reason why I have gardening, by the way, as the background picture is because you get gardening so often. It's crazy how oftentimes people say gardening, but people will say gardening for totally different reasons. Sometimes it's to nurture something and watch it grow. Sometimes it's just to be out and about and in the elements. Sometimes it's because it's a beautification for their house and it increases the resale value. There's lots of different reasons why people say gardening. So the why question is imperative at the end, but that first initial will give you content to work with. And so you can start filleting out and sort of unwrapping the answers to what they gave you. All right, so the second is the interview. We recommend having a series of questions that you ask everyone to help field test and test iterate all of these questions. And the questions that we provide in Profiler training are field tested questions. They're questions that have been used on hundreds of subjects in order to help get some of the best quality answers available. The third pillar is what we call verification. This is something that almost everybody misses in a type conversation. And we believe it's possibly, even though it usually only lasts 5 or 10 minutes in the overall profiling session, we believe it's one of the most important components. Verification is going through the different dichotomies and explaining them simply but elegantly and asking the other person, does that resonate, right? And this draws them into the process. It ensures that you have not projected onto them a preconception you came in with, nor are you pushing upon them something that would be a bias you have around certain types. It also helps indicate moments of resistance when you get to the explanation, because you're going to go to the fourth component, which is explaining their type to them. And if a person has any resistance to that, it's going to come up in the verification of the type. So for example, if I was profiling Joel, through the series of answers he gave me, felt like ENFP sounded the best. I would go through what an extrovert versus an introvert, an intuitive versus a sensor, a thinker versus a feeler, and a judger versus a perceiver. And at the end of each one of those descriptions, I would ask, does that resonate? Well, what's interesting is that when Joel was first typed a long time ago, he came out as an ENTP, right?
That's right.
Thinking tertiary, right? A lot of focus on extroverted thinking or effectiveness as a tertiary or 10-year-old.
It was a written test, but yeah.
Right.
Way back in the day.
Way back in the day. So if I went through something like this with him, and he was emotionally attached to being a thinker because maybe he had taken a test one time that said he was an ENTP, and I asked him about feeling and thinking, he might give me a little bit of pushback at that moment to go, wait, well, I thought I was a thinker. And then this gives you an opportunity to explain the actual differences between the two and to ensure that I don't think he's an ENFP because he looks like my cousin who's an ENFP, which is very common in typing. One of the biggest challenges people have in typing or doing profiling sessions is that they bring with them the biases that they have about what the people in their life. Either they have an avatar or an archetype of what that person should look like based on the people that they personally know, or maybe they're even inaccurate about that the person in their life that's the ESTJ might actually not be an ESTJ. They might be a different type, but that's in their mind. And so they're talking to somebody who's, I don't know, an ENTJ, and they're fairly certain that that person's an ESTJ because it looks like this person over here. Going through this process ensures that you're not falling for those biases that you're bringing in, and also make sure it resonates with the other person. So verification of the type, it's a 5-minute process, and it's absolutely imperative, and it's the one step that most people miss. As mentioned, the fourth pillar is the explanation. And we choose to use the CAR model because it's the easiest way to explain cognitive functions to the person that you're talking to. So after you go through verification, they feel very good about that. We do a short explanation of what the cognitive functions are and how they work in a person. We start students out with a short script, or we encourage you to create a short scripts based on some of the things that you watch us do in profiling sessions, and then walk through each of the functions in the subject's CAR model. And so almost all the time, first of all, people feel more understood than they ever have. And they think that you're palm reading, and they think that you're a mystic. And really it's just that you've figured out their function stack. And so when they resonate strongly with it, it's always a combination of excitement and then also questions. What's the practical application of this? How can this be used? And what's nice about this is it encourages what we call the unofficial fifth pillar, which we don't officially teach, but we highly encourage people pick up some skill around, which is coaching. And so Profiler training gives you recommendations on some of the ways that you can help coach somebody through understanding their type and some of the highest leverage activities they can do for their own personality type.
Yeah. So if you're watching this, you probably have done typing in your life. We're gonna transition now into talking a little bit about profiler training, some of the ingredients to go into some of that. But you're probably doing typing right now. You might casually watch people on television. You might have family members. You might be getting pretty good at it. Maybe there's some things that you're getting some skill around. We like to think in terms of profiling rather than just typing, because we like to think in terms of a discipline, an ecosystem, an entire system of thinking and behaving that really leads to better and better profiling skills around helping people, not bestowing a type upon them by saying you're this type, but we're helping co-create an experience where they're arriving at the right fit type for them. So the best fit type in their life, you're almost like a person that comes alongside of them in a profiling experience to help them arrive at their best fit type. So there's really 3 ingredients that we've identified for getting to be an excellent profiler. There's 3 conditions, basically. Condition number 1 is practice. Obviously, we're going to be turning knowledge into skill through deliberate practice. You might know a lot about the Myers-Briggs system. You might know casually a lot about how people show up in different ways. You have a lot of experience in that. How can you create a framework or an ecosystem that allows you to discipline that skill over time so you can get better with benchmarks and things that help you improve that skill over the long haul? The second condition is guidance. Obviously, mentorship and leaders and guides that can help navigate that space for that deliberate practice is important. People that can come alongside you, give you calibration, other people that have been through the journey, peers to peer review it and help you get feedback. That feedback is so important. And when you're an ecosystem that provides that feedback, we believe that also helps you build the skill of profiling. And the third condition is a community. People that will support you. Support is key for anything you want to implement long-term, right? If you want to change your behavior, you want to change your skill set, and you want to have basically accountability, that support is important for that accountability. So those 3 ingredients, deliberate skill development, guidance, and support, if they're woven together with a system, we believe that will produce an excellent profiler. So we want to talk a little bit now about our profiler training course offered by Personality Hacker. This is a photo from a couple years ago in Washington, D.C. Profiler training is it's got multiple parts, and we'll go over those parts here next, but it's basically a 5-day immersion event that helps you calibrate and master the skill of being a personality profiler. So we've created a little chart here to kind of show you a little bit of how this looks. Profiler training is divided into 2 main parts that address those 3 things: skill building, guidance, and support. It's a digital home study course combined with a live 5-day event. So you kind of see this. Right now we're getting ready to launch this new class. Enrollment is opening up. And the first part is going to be a digital home study course. The second part is a live event in a few months. It's about 5-6 months from now.
So there's a lot of content that comes in the digital home study course. And we're going to focus a little bit on that piece because there's a lot involved in it. In order to be able to prepare for that 5-day intensive, though, you're going to need to have a solid basis of understanding underneath you, because we don't go slow. The 5-day event is very fast, and it's intended to get you into what we call embodiment exercises as quickly as possible, so that you're not just learning conceptually, you're actually experiencing each of the functions. But in order to be ready for that, you need to have a solid understanding of the system and the theory. You need that community support to keep you motivated so that you get all of your coursework done before the live event. And of course, answers to your questions as you learn to make sure that you're calibrated accurately. So the digital piece is 40 plus sessions. It covers the dichotomies, the cognitive functions, the 16 types, the 4 temperaments, the polarities, the 4 polarities, which are the pairings of cognitive functions like extroverted intuition and introverted sensing, or exploration memory would be one polarity. And all of the functions have a combination of opposites that create almost like a new it's almost like its own cognitive function. And we go into that. We also talk about our proprietary firm model and defensive strategies that each type uses. And so you're looking not just at what you think you see in terms of dichotomies, but you're trained to look for things that are deeper. So as I mentioned, almost everybody says gardening, right? Or not everybody, but a lot of people say gardening.
A lot of people.
Yeah, not everybody, but I wouldn't say gardening, but
I don't think I would either.
I'm always shocked by how many people say gardening. That's all. So the most important question is why? Because it's not the answer. It's any cognitive function can go garden, right? Any cognitive function can encourage somebody to take a specific action. It's not what they're doing, it's why they're doing what they're doing. And the Profiler Training video curriculum is designed to help you understand sort of the wiring that's going on behind everything. What is an ISTP getting out of gardening that an ENFJ or ESFJ isn't, and vice versa? Why would an ENTJ love gardening as opposed to maybe, say, an ESFP? So it's a matter of looking at the wiring behind it, not simply the product that you see in front of you. And the digital curriculum is designed to go through and look at all of those components. It's also we created a syllabus to make it so that you can go through the entire program well before the live event. And in fact, we even have a few weeks buffer. So I believe the syllabus is usually about 16 weeks. And then you have a buffer time period to go through bonus content, which there's quite a bit of bonus content in there as well. That's not necessary to go through, but you certainly can. And it's recommended you do. And also to just play some catch up if you need to. Mm-hmm. We also give you a little bit of buffer time to try your chops at profiling before you get to the live event, because the live event is designed to help you really dive into the deep end and get into a profiling session if you haven't done so already. But some students choose to sort of warm themselves up and do profiling before that. So we give you a little bit of time to sort of warm up to the idea before the live event.
So all of this digital content lives in a members area. You log in, you have access to digital videos and audio recordings, downloads, and you can watch it on there. You can access it mobile or on your laptop or desktop computer. And basically it's designed to get you to the place where you're ready when you come to the live event to hit the ground running. So it's designed for you to get all the learning piece digitally, distance, home study. So when you come to the live event, and these live events are intense because we get right to work with exercises and other things. We'll talk about those in a moment. But it's designed so you can hit the ground having all the knowledge in your head ready to apply at the live event.
Right. Like some people, when we talk, and especially like in the podcast, if you're one of our podcast listeners, you'll hear us talk about, we very rarely use the acronyms or the shorthand. We usually almost always say introverted thinking or accuracy because we're meeting people halfway. There are different levels of understanding and growth in this. But when, of course, by the time you get through the digital content, and by the time we get to the live event, we're using all the acronyms, we're using TI, or the shorthand, and we're just going really super duper fast. And so we'll get you prepared to be at that level where those things are not overwhelming to you. But we also provide the community, right? In order to learn anything, you not only need to be able to have the practice, but you also need to have the support. And we provide a Facebook group that is filled with alumni. We have over 300 students at this point, and varying levels of activity in the alumni, but there's almost always alumni in there that are very, very willing to help you answer questions. Sometimes they'll let you practice on them in profiling sessions, and we just have a really great community of amazing people that we'll talk about in just a moment. But of course that comes as part of it. And you get access to us every month during the digital portion. We have live Q&A calls every month so that as you're learning, to make sure that you're calibrated, to make sure that any questions you have, I still don't get the difference between FI and TI or introverted feeling and introverted thinking. What's the difference here? I'm not understanding it. We're there to help you to flay those things out and to get that really calibrated understanding of the difference of all the functions.
And what those calls look like is just like this, except it's not just us on video. You're also on video. It's on Zoom. It's on a meeting format, not a webinar format, where little like the Brady Bunch boxes pop up from the old Brady Bunch show. And we can all talk and have a conversation, asking questions and workshopping maybe some of the challenges you're having in your understanding. We do that once a month. And Tony said, now that you have it for the 6 months leading up to the live event, which is true, and also beyond that as well, once you're part of the program, we have alumni from 5 to 7 years ago that still often show up from time to time to these Q&A sessions. So every month you have access to the community and us to have that conversation around things you're getting stuck with. Maybe you want to reapply your learning a couple years later, whatever that is, or like reconnect to it. Those are available to you ongoing as alumni after you enroll in the program. That's just something we've offered for years.
We've done live Q&As every month since 2013, 2012.
Something like that.
Yeah. So we just do them like, it's just part of our lives now. And we invite people to come to them. We love seeing alumni from, the old classes from like 2011, 2012, and they still show up sometimes, which is fantastic. So that's one of the great things about this. It's really a community. It's a community that's long lasting, that you build lifelong relationships with, which is awesome.
So that's part one. Let's talk, that's all the digital content. And let's talk a little bit about part two, which is the 5-day event this year, coming up this year in November 17th, is going to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is here in the United States. There's an international airport, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the details there, but basically this is in Pittsburgh in November. So the part one, the home studies leading up to that live event, and that's the live event you would come to and be a part of as a new student. So here's what an event will look like. We're going to review and augment all the digital content you've been going through in the past few months. We're going to put ourselves there now, right? Let's fast forward to the live event, look back at the past. You're going to have gone through tons of digital content by the time you get there. Your learning will be up to speed on the shorthand for cognitive functions. You're going to understand the basic elements of a profiling session, all the learning you're going to have. At the event, we're going to do what's called embodiment exercises. We've unlocked this as one of the most powerful ways to literally embody what it's like to be a part of each of the 8 cognitive functions that show up in people's personalities. So we do a lot of hands-on exercises, things you have to do to get into this headspace and heart space of those cognitive functions. And it's a really enlightening experience, because as people do these embodiment exercises, they start to realize just how difficult it is sometimes to access a cognitive function that isn't in their car model or cognitive function stack. They realize, wow, that is a really challenging function to get into. I'm really seeing how my family member or my friend, how their brain and their heart are working in this way. Like, this is really different than I expected. So that's something we do, is embodiment. Do you want to say anything about the embodiment exercises?
Well, I would say that what's nice about embodiment exercises is that a lot of people during those, especially students that have had a challenge discovering their own personality type, embodiment exercises is oftentimes where that becomes very clear. There's a moment when somebody can feel that they're not in their native function. And that's a big piece of what those embodiment functions do too, is that it gives you a taste of what it's like to be somebody else's type, but it also really shows you how challenging it is to use a function that's not one of your quote unquote native functions. And so a lot of times this is where people get major ahas on what their personality type actually is, if they have been mistyped. We've had people burst into tears realizing that they're actually, like, we had one of our students who came as an ENTP, or thought they were an ENTP, realized during the introverted feeling embodiment exercise that no, they're actually an ENFP. And it just opened up so much for them in getting in touch with their emotions and their emotional experience. And it was kind of a game changer for them. So those embodiment exercises are powerful for learning, but they're also powerful for personal understanding and ahas, which is one of the things that we can't really explain is the magic of these live events. It's hard to describe exactly what happens, but you end up in this sort of energetic cocoon that the community creates, and shifts happen for people. It's not just intellectual learning. It's almost as far away from that as it could be. You get a lot of data dump because it's us, right? It's me. I talk a lot and I do a lot of data dumping, but it's really experiential, which is why we moved to the live event model, because we knew that was a missing piece. And so that's really what you get in all of that.
Also, you will be thrown into the deep end of doing an actual profiling session. We encourage you to do one before you come to the event, but if you're nervous or scared, or you haven't gotten to it yet, you will be doing one at the live event, which is exciting. And you're gonna have the support you need. We have people there. You'll be practicing all week long, but at the last day, we have volunteers that come in. We don't know their types often. They're usually from the community, other podcast listeners. And they come in as volunteers, and you get to actually profile a stranger for the first time if you haven't done it up till that point. So that's really exciting. Hot seats to the event to workshop some of the challenges you might be having. And then obviously connecting with students and alumni. We've had people that have formed romantic relationships, friendships, lifelong partnerships, friendships, business partnerships from the community. So it's really also that support, that community. let's go through right now. Let's just show you a couple photos from the live event just so you can get a sense of what it might look like. Obviously, us here teaching on stage. Another angle kind of showing how the classroom setup is in this. Here's a embodiment exercise breakout session with people who are workshopping one of the exercises we've given them. So they're getting in small groups, talking about a cognitive function. I'm not sure exactly which one they're working on here, but they're working on one of those in this. More embodiment exercise breakouts, just give you a sense of the kind of the people that show up, the type of environment it's like. Visuals always help, right? To kind of see what it's like. Sometimes we have guest speakers come. We've had Dr. Dario Nardi, who is the author of Neuroscience of Personality. We've had Dr. Beatrice Chestnut come and talk about the Enneagram. This is actually Dr. AJ Drenth, who runs Personality Junkie with his wife Elaine. They came and we interviewed them on the main stage and got that interview with all of our students, and they were able to hang out for a few days and talk with the community too. So we like to invite guest speakers from typology leaders in the typology community, other people that are also teaching and exploring typology to come and be a part of it too. So that's really cool. Again, more embodiment exercise type breakout sessions. More of those. Just kind of give you a cursory sense, scope of all the learning. And then this is our class from our Los Angeles event that we just ran a few months ago. This is everybody there as far as the class, a big group photo at the end of last year's class.
We make no promises about our guest speakers, and we do that because people's schedules are busy and we don't want to make promises. But we have committed to always making sure that we have somebody who is knowledgeable, engaging, on the cutting edge of typology information. And Dario is a friend. And so he's oftentimes very open to being at our events if he at all can. So making no promises at all, but it's very common. In fact, I think Dario has been to the last couple events, and Dr. Beatrice Chestnut has also been to the last couple events. And, you just saw Dr. AJ Drenth and his partner Elaine. And so it's like, there's always somebody. We can't promise who, but there's always somebody, and our friends are the most likely to be there.
And like Dr. Nardi just was on a digital virtual event we just had. So like we can also do digital workshops, special ones between the live events and things of that nature.
That's right.
So we've talked about part one, which is the digital home study course, part two, which is the live event, but there's also an element of continued learning. After Profiler Training 101, it would be remiss for us not to mention that there's extra things that after you go through Profiler Training, we have more courses and more offerings because we're building an ecosystem of training around this. One of those courses is called Advanced Profiling Techniques, where we take what you learn in Profiling 101 and we help workshop it through a lot more hands-on. It's a much smaller group of people. It's much more one-on-one engagement where we help walk through perfecting the craft of profiling over time.
And it's guided in large part by one of our students, Melissa Harris, who actually ended up becoming possibly one of the best profilers I've ever seen. She just became obsessed with profiling, and she lost count after she had performed over 700 profiling sessions. And so Melissa gathered a ton of great data in all of those because she did them in very short succession. And so a lot of the advanced profiling techniques is taught by Melissa and also by us. And it's just an amazing program. Profiler coaching is also an option. Profiler coaching takes what you learn in profiler training and advanced profiling techniques and then applies it to a coaching model. So if you've always wanted to be a coach, or if you are a coach and you want to learn how to apply profiling into your coaching practice, this is where you learn that skill. And so it goes more into the practical application, not just in getting really good at profiling, which is a fantastic skill to develop, but also in using this information to help change people's lives, to really make an impact, which of course is that's our passion. And so profiler coaching is where we lead people in order to not just understand this for their own benefit, but really to make a difference in other people's lives.
So we've identified two basic types of people that like to come into profiler training. Right? The first is the profiler enthusiasts. These are the people that are looking to improve and calibrate their profiling skills. Maybe studying typology, they just want to get better at their techniques. They're familiar with concepts and theories, but short on practice. They need, a community of that support, of the guidance and the skill building, and a comprehensive system that integrates all the concepts. So that's the first type of person. The second is a profile careerist, someone that really wants to apply. Maybe maybe you're a coach already and you want to take this and add this into your coaching practice, or you are a therapist, or you have some other practice that you want to weave this into, or your business. We have a lot of people in the different professions that come into this to take this as a skill and bring it into the profession they're already doing. Mm-hmm. So that's the other avenue that often people come with, the kind of the career model. So let's talk a little bit about some of the questions that you might have. We're going to try to address some of the questions that are typical that people come up with. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, we're going to open it up for, we'll show you how you can enroll, and then we'll open it up for your questions if you've got specific questions you'd like to ask. So these are some common ones. How is this different from learning from the material in the podcast?
Well, in the podcast, we've made it sort of, the podcast is whatever we're interested in at the time, whatever is fascinating to us and whatever learnings we are exploring.
Random access.
It's random access, right? And it can be interesting. It can be a deep dive. Sometimes it's personal growth oriented. Sometimes we're working on a new thought and just kind of hearing ourselves talk about it. But profiler training is very different. It's organized and curated specifically to develop a skill. That's very different than meandered, extroverted intuition, just sort of going all over the place in our own ideas, which, not to diminish the podcast. The podcast, I think it's a good podcast. I hope it is. And a lot of people watching, are most likely a podcast listener. But this is not just a series of podcasts. This is very focused and intended with the intention of developing a highly honed skill. And so all of the information is much tighter. It's much more directly delivered. It's not meandered. It's very focused. Think of it as more like the introverted thinking element of us than the extroverted intuition element. And so it's a very different experience from the podcast.
So if you're in other courses, maybe you are in college or you're taking other courses, should you join? This is probably a personal decision for you. We will say it's pretty involved. Mm-hmm. I would consider it like a college course, maybe a little bit more, maybe 2 college courses, 2-3 credit courses in a university. It's involved. It takes a lot of time to apply the material. I mean, you can learn it, but when you're really working on an application, it can be involved. So based on your skill set, how much you can juggle or manage things, it's basically, I'd say it's a course or two in its scope.
Yeah. The way the syllabus is set up, you're probably going to be investing between 3 and 5 hours a week for consumption of the content for those 16 weeks. Now, again, of course, you have a little bit of a buffer where you can play some catch up if you need to, but we do recommend you stay on course in the syllabus. What's nice is that the syllabus tells you exactly how long each session is and how much time is involved in each of the recommended viewings for that week. But you will be no less than 3 hours a week will be dedicated to it. And then, of course, that's not if you're practicing. If you're actively practicing, of course, weave in the time that you take to profile people. So yeah, so there's a bit of a commitment, time commitment, and of course, a financial commitment.
And that kind of answers this about how long do I need to invest to learn the material?
Mm-hmm. So 16 weeks is generally in the curriculum. Again, there's bonuses that you can watch as well, which we recommend. There's also podcasts we recommend listening to and that sort of thing, and other source material. But that's approximately between 3 to 5 hours a week.
Some people go through the material. They're so excited. They go through it in 2 weeks because you get access to all of it. And we have a syllabus for you to do it on a timeline. That's pretty intense. But some people do it and they really enjoy it, and they go back through it again and they really dig into it more. But it's really go at your own speed and your own pace.
I always tell people I'm sorry because it's primarily my voice they're listening to. And so if they binge it, then they're hearing my voice constantly for 2 weeks, and then they go back through it. And some people have said that they start dreaming in my voice, which is, I'm sorry to anybody that happens to. I apologize.
Sounds
but it
terrifying.
I know. But it is something that happens. It's a phenomenon.
What type of people am I going to be learning with? So some of our 300 plus alumni are entrepreneurs, coaches, psychotherapists, Ivy League professors, crisis negotiators, CEOs, Olympic gymnast trainers, musicians, the list goes on. People from all different backgrounds, all different cultures, professions, age groups, some people in university, some people retired, like people from all over the spectrum. And you're going to be around people somebody is going to be similar to you and also challenge you being different than you too, which is exciting. It's got a lot of diversity. So
exactly.
That's awesome.
Well, and what's nice is that this is a skill because it has to do with how people tick. It's a skill that can be applied to almost anything. So of course, obviously we have our human resources people there. We have our business owners that use it to help understand and lead their teams. My favorite was our friend Greg, who's a crisis negotiator, who uses it in order to help people who are in very dire situations. And so there's no limit to how it can be applied. We also have people from all over the world. One of the questions we get is, do I have to live in the United States to be able to join Profiler training? And the answer is no. We have had people from literally all over the world. And people who've come to the live events from all over the world. Now, if you're incapable of doing that, you can still join the program and get all the learnings through the digital component of it. We highly recommend coming to the live event, and you can't go further learning if you haven't come to a live event. So that is a major piece of it, but people have come from all over the world. And so you'll be in good company.
Our dream is as we build this and we get more and more students, we're able to move the location of the live event to different locations around the world. So outside the United States is a goal. It's a dream. It's a vision we have. We'd love to maybe go to Europe next and then maybe Asia or Africa at some point to do this in different locations. But right now we're geographically located in the United States because that's where we live. But we do have people from all over coming. How much attention and feedback can I expect from the instructors? A lot.
Right. So there's two different times you're really going to get our attention. The Q&A is, of course, monthly Q&As when you get to have us, and we'll basically stay at a Q&A almost as long as we need to. So you get very personalized one-on-one attention from us. But then at the live event, of course, we're all there at the live event. And so we're a captive audience, and so are you. So you get a lot of attention from us as instructors during the live event as well. And of course, you get a lot of attention and feedback from other alumni, from other students and alumni that have come before, and people who are highly calibrated, people who have gone through advanced profiling courses. And so you get a lot of attention and feedback from them as well.
All right, so what's the tuition? The moment we've all been waiting for. It's $2,997 for this course, $2,997. We do have some plans to fit your budget for 3-month and 6-month plans if that's something you need to do for payment. And also if you pay in full, there's a 15% discount. So it's a little bit of a savings if you do a pay in full because this is a pretty comprehensive course. So that tuition reflects it. If you're interested, let's move up to the enrollment part here. We've talked about part 1. We've talked about part 2, talked about continued learning, but let's go all the way back to the beginning. We're talking about if you applied to class today, what happens? Let's say you apply today. We'll talk about what happens in the program here, but you apply today. Our orientation starts on the 29th. We close enrollment on the 26th of June of this month. That's a little over a week from now, a week and a day. So if you enroll right now, or if you apply right now, we're going to announce acceptance of students on the 27th. Basically, we have an application process just to ensure the community stays sound. We want to make sure we vet everybody, and we have an application process just to ensure that we're crafting the community in a way that's really beneficial to everyone. So it's just I don't think we've ever really rejected anyone from that application process, but it's just a way for us to ensure that we're guiding the community and crafting in a way that will be beneficial to everybody's learning. So that acceptance process happens on the 27th, Saturday, class orientation on the 29th, and then we kick off the following week. We start in July. We go from July all the way to the live, July 6th, all the way to the live event in November. And we get started right away. So if you apply and you're accepted on the following Saturday, we get rocking and rolling.
All right. So now this is the time to answer your targeted questions. So I'm going to...
While you're pulling that up, if you would like to apply, head over to personalityhacker.com/profiler training. There's an entire page of tons of information detailing out the location, the tuition, like all the details we went over in this session here. All of that's on that page. If you have any more questions, you can email info@personalityhacker.com to ask your questions directly. If you have more questions after right now, if you've got questions right now, we're going to answer those live on the air for you, and then we will break for the night. Thanks everybody for being here too.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for being here if you have to skedaddle. But going to the questions, we've got some really good questions. So the first one is, Nancy, can you participate if you're not on and don't want to join Facebook? How limiting would that be? Okay. So here's the Facebook answer. I'm going to be radically honest. I loathe Facebook. I loathe it. It's like my least favorite thing on the planet. So I completely and totally sympathize with people not wanting to be on Facebook. And it's literally the most convenient place to have this group. And I can't get around it. Like I've tried to find ways to get around it, and it's just not happening. So what we usually recommend is to, and you can even have like an alternative. People have like had alter egos or whatever to sign on to Facebook just for that group. And that usually is how it works out. What happens if you're not on there? You miss out on stuff. Like there's stuff going on in the Facebook group. It's not imperative. It's not necessary, but it is where a lot of alumni gather and other fellow students. And it's where we make a lot of announcements and we let people know what's going on. And so how limiting would it be? There are people who've never joined. There are people who aren't on it, and I don't know what their experience is. I just know that it is a nice feature that community is. And I loathe Facebook, so I totally understand. And really, I'm only on there for that and our community group, Intuitive Awakening. And if those two things like somehow died tomorrow, I'd be like, all right, I'm free. I don't have to be on Facebook anymore. So that's generally my answer to that. So I sympathize, and also that's where we're at.
Yeah, but you will get alerts through email
Yes.
and other touch points, so you don't have to be on there for things. It's just it's a place where most people are already on a platform. So getting people to sign up for yet another platform is more challenging than just using what's already available.
Yeah. All right. Do you think there'll be actually be a live event? I'm still self-quarantining because of COVID.
We are too.
We are too. So what's going to happen if for some reason, and we were calling an act of God, right? What happens if we cannot have the live event because of something like COVID? Well, what we'll do is we will have a live event in spring of 2021, and everybody who has signed on at this time will just automatically be scheduled for that one. And of course, at no further cost or anything. Like you will just automatically be signed up for the spring 2021.
Hopefully that won't happen. Hopefully
Yes.
we'll be able to run this
Yep.
and follow the guidance of the local jurisdiction in the area and the hotel that we're running it at. We're going to follow their guidance, whatever they're going to ask us to do. We're just going to do that. And hopefully we'll be able to run it through social distancing and all the precautions that they're going to ask us to take.
If basically, if we are allowed to run the event, if it hasn't been removed from us, we will be. And we will be following all of the precautions necessary, because we're also concerned. I mean, we're maybe some of the most concerned that we know in our area, right? Like we still are quite careful. And so we're also very sympathetic to that. And so, we understand the concern, and we've made it so that effectively, if that happens, then we'll simply be moving it to the spring. And also in the meantime, we will have live digital events during that time period to ensure that everybody is getting as maximized learning as possible.
Yeah.
One of the things that we recently did when I committed an act of violence against Joel's laptop, that was actually during one of our digital events for Profilers training. And we had amazing learning during that time. And actually Dario showed up for that one. And so did Dr. Beatrice Chestnut and her teaching partner, Ronio Paez. And so we'll make sure that learning will always be happening and high leverage learning will always be happening. And we will do our best to accommodate for those situations. So you won't be feeling it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
All right. How long do we have access to the digital content? Forever. I mean, people who signed up in 2011 still have access to the digital content. So it's a
membership site, and sometimes there's more workshops and things that are added to it as well over time. As we record new things digitally, we add them into the products area of the membership site.
Yep, and the live event is in person. It's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, November 17th through the 21st.
Yeah.
All right. Roughly how many people are usually at the live event is a limit on registrations. Right now, we're limiting it to 65 people for this particular class, but usually we have at least 70 people at the live events, approximately. I don't
Sometimes
think
more. We swell different days. If alumni are coming in on the weekend, sometimes it can swell larger. But usually, from about 60 to 80 is usually the range of people that are there.
Yep. JL try to ensure the profiler understands and knows their own type with complete certainty before releasing them to the world. All right, so this is something that is part of the process. So you can practice at any time. I mean, heck, you can practice right now. Like, you're not even part of profiler training. You can go out and be typing people. I mean, we can't really stop you. That said, there are certain criteria that must be met before you'll be accredited through us. And one of those is that you have your best fit type locked down and are very solid about that. One of the nice things about going through the material and also coming to the live events is that people figure out their best fit type a lot of times. And that might be after they've been very emotionally attached to a different type. And so, yeah, it's all a part of the learning process, and sometimes thrashing through that and figuring out your own type and sort of trying on a bunch of types for size. I mean, some people sign up with profiler training, in my opinion, pretty much for that as their goal, is to figure out their best fit type. And that thrashing process and that really getting into the meat of it and then going through the embodiment exercises, that's all part of the process. You can't get accredited through us unless you've gone through that process and you're on the other side of it. All right. Related to the webinar, will there be a course for spring, summer 2001 and 2012?
2022.
Or 2021 or 2022. Our anticipation is that we'll keep doing these. And so, yes, that is our goal.
That's the worst thing we could say to get you to sign up tonight, is like, there'll be another one in the future.
I know.
But it's true. It's the truth. There will be more of these in the future.
Right.
But I'd encourage you to sign up now because I want you to. But yeah, we have we also will have these in the future too.
Well, and here's the thing. Okay, so you're supposed to, as a marketer, be like, scarcity and it's about to end and it will never happen again and we don't know, right? Like, we're supposed to do all that. But here's the radically honest truth. One is that we do these every 6 months because people are at different time periods of their life. They're ready now or they're ready later, right? And sometimes people are just ready now. It's just the time. But one of my favorite comedians is Brian Regan, who's hilarious. And he talked about going to an eye doctor and getting a new prescription. And he said, how could instantly improved vision not be at the top of your list? And I remember thinking, yeah, why wouldn't I do something like that? Because I think I needed my contacts prescription upgraded or something. And I was like, yeah, why isn't that at the top of my list? For a lot of people, going through profiler training is instantly improved vision. It calibrates their life. They're at a time period right now where they're not sure what they're doing, that they're desperate for a community, that this is just a time period maybe that they are looking for people to support them in various aspects of their lives, and they really need a new trajectory. And so most of the time people sign up because they're ready for those reasons. And so basically profiler training for a lot of people is instantly improved vision. And so as far as I'm concerned, I don't really feel like I need to do a lot of pressure tactics, except to say, why wouldn't instantly improved vision not be at the top of your list, right? So if it's time for you, it's time for you. And we highly recommend doing it as soon as you know that about yourself.
Good answer.
All right, not directly related to the webinar, how can you differentiate between cognitive functions true to type versus blended or disguised cognitive functions that show up from the synthesis of two cognitive functions, TE plus FI equals FE? Would you resort to simulating embodiment exercises? Will this be covered in the profiler training course? So yes, distinctions made around not only individual functions, but also polarities is a big piece of this. And in the embodiment exercises, we do an embodiment exercise for each individual function, but then we do an embodiment exercise for the polarities weighted both directions. For example, we do an embodiment exercise for extroverted sensing, and then an embodiment exercise for introverted intuition, and then an embodiment exercise that's introverted intuition, extroverted sensing with introverted intuition leading, and then an embodiment exercise for extroverted sensing, introverted intuition with extroverted sensing leading. So you get a distinction between all of these, and you really feel the difference, because there is a lot of question people have. Like, sometimes people think they're NJs when they're SJs, because introverted sensing done well incorporates extroverted intuition, right? And that makes them feel like they're intuiting when they're going inside, but that's very distinct from how introverted intuition is working. And those embodiment exercises create such a great distinction between all of them. So yes, that is definitely covered. And that is a great question. Okay. The next live event is in Pennsylvania. Any idea where the following live event will be for the class that presumably starts in December? That is something we don't know. All right. So if you want to go to a place where you know it will be and that's convenient for you, that is one thing that I can do as a marketing scarcity tactic, is to say that we actually don't know where the next one will be.
And normally we would just be like, we're just going to pick a region or an area. Like I would normally say, probably on the West Coast of the United States would be the next one. However, with the world events and, COVID right now, we don't want to make any commitments to putting it anywhere. I mean, I would also like to be in Europe, maybe the next cycle around. But again, I have no idea how logistics will happen. So we're kind of waiting and seeing. We know, because Pittsburgh's only a few hours from our home here, we know that we can deliver that event as a company and as two people that can show up to it, because we can drive there literally if flights are unavailable for some reason, which would also make it challenging. I guess that would be a world event that would not allow it. Long story short, we're waiting to see what happens before we commit to a location. But our goal would be probably the West Coast of the United States or somewhere in Europe, maybe London or Amsterdam. And the second tier would be probably back on the East Coast, somewhere within driving range of New York City or Philadelphia, the Northeast. So Philadelphia, maybe Pittsburgh area, somewhere in the Northeast, maybe North Carolina or Atlanta, somewhere on the East Coast within an 8-hour drive of where we are. Again, it's really up in the air right now because we're waiting and seeing how things shake out for the live event this time, and then also, going forward. So.
Right. When we were determining whether or not to continue doing the 6-month events, we knew that there were people who had been waiting for this. They'd been waiting to join Profiler training. So we're making sure to offer it. We are sensitive that we're in a very odd time period in history, and we want to acknowledge that that's the case. And also there have been people who have been waiting to sign up for a long time because the timing is right for them. So we wanted to offer this class. We understand that it can be a little challenging, but we also want to make sure that we offer as much value as humanly possible. And we will do everything we can to ensure that you are getting value, whether it's in a digital or a live format. And we will make sure that that live format piece is available as soon as it can be.
So again, if for some reason the live event can't happen this November, world events, COVID, something's happening, it's destabilizing the ability to do that. We'll have another one scheduled in the spring that you could just automatically come to. And the likelihood of it being in the United States on the Eastern seaboard somewhere is probably pretty high. I'll say that. That's probably if we have to reschedule. So if we're going to do the one in Pittsburgh and then we do another one in the spring, that might be a different location. But if we have to reschedule the one in Pittsburgh, we'll probably do it on the Eastern seaboard. So it's still in the same time zone, same area. So you have that in your head, and possibly even the same location, even Pittsburgh itself.
Yeah.
So that way it makes it really easy. So there's not a lot of logistical shifting. So that's probably the answer I would give you.
Yeah. All right. So another question about COVID, same deal. We will, and if we have to turn it into a digital platform, we certainly will. We are even now considering what that will look like if it must be turned into a digital platform. But no matter what, there will be an event during that week. No matter what, whether it's a live event in Pittsburgh or whether or not it's a digital platform event, there will be an event during that week. So it's a matter of just kind of.
Is it online or in person?
Yeah.
And then we'll have to do the in person at some point in the future.
That's right.
And you're still invited to come.
Automatically invited to that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everyone wears VR glasses, some would say.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of cool. Just sit there and you look around.
That's
feel
right.
like you're right in the immersive.
All right. Do you ever plan to have fully online classes in this vein, even a lightweight excerpt version? Would love to attend, but too concerned about COVID-19 to do an in-person event right now. And the immediate future is looking pretty uncertain. We've already talked about this. So we actually started Profiler training as a fully online class. And when we went to the live model, it was so spectacularly successful that where our plan is to continue to doing the live event model. And also, just as we mentioned, we will continue to do digital platform as long as we need to. And we will make sure that you get high value for everything that you are experiencing. So we've already answered that one, I think. All right, I'm interested in making a career at personality profiling. So I'm curious about how that worked out for your alumni who became professional profilers and coaches. And also if anyone's forged an alternate career from the skill besides profiling and coaching. Just wondering if I'm missing alternate options. So most of the time people that are using it for something other than profiling and coaching are using it in something that they are already involved in. Like we mentioned, Greg, who is the crisis negotiator. I'm not supposed to say the other thing. A crisis negotiator. He's using profiling as an extra tool for what he's already doing. So most of the time people are using it as a tool in what they've already done. But most of the people who turn a profession into it on its own merit are profilers and coaches. And quite honestly, some people are more successful than others, but that oftentimes has to do more with how much they have reached out for marketing and understanding how to market themselves. And of course, that would be something that you would have to figure out on your end, exactly how you want to hang your shingle, so to speak. But yeah, it's actually worked out for quite a few people. Lots of psychotherapists. We've had quite a few therapists sort of incorporate what they're doing. We have somebody right now who studies eating disorders and guides people through the process of healing from eating disorders, and very much uses typology in helping sort of diagnose why the person might be experiencing the eating disorder the way they are based on their cognitive functions. So there's lots of different applications in it, and your specific context will vary. All right. Thank you. Love you both. Thank you. Have you guys heard of objective personality? And if so, what do you think about their system? And if not, you should definitely check them out. Yeah, of course, we've heard of objective personality or their system. So basically the place where I would say we diverge from a lot of other type leaders in the community is how much we focus on the personal growth aspect of it. So we try to keep the system as simple and as accessible as possible while having the highest leverage for focusing on growth and the benefits it gives to the individual person developing a growth path. So, I think a lot of leaders are focused on, we call it kind of building a better mousetrap, right? Focused on the system and focused on getting all of the intricacies of the system. Whereas our focus is more on getting a really solid, accurate type for the individual, and then helping them craft a growth path after that. And so we have intentionally kept things a little bit more simple and accessible so that the organizing principle is not more complex than the information that it's organizing. And that said, I have a lot of respect for everybody in the type community and all of the people who are focused on different aspects of it, sort of different niches and different elements of it. And some people love to go way down the rabbit's hole on all the intricacies. There's a couple different type leaders who do that. And I think that that's fantastic because there's a market for that. And there is attention and people who really want to do that. And ours is more of a simple, accessible model to leverage the growth elements. But yeah, absolutely.
I would say that the way we approach it too is, remember, you're not a glorified test. As you learn to be a profiler, you are your own unique person. You become an instrument. And so calibrating yourself and your personality showing up and how you are processing information, learning information, making decisions, that's going to really inform how you approach profiling. And each profiler does it a little different. We obviously have a system and a mechanism to help train people how to do it. But there is no, as far as I'm concerned, there's no God on high. There's no type God that has a definitive answer for any person's type. It's a co-creative process, a discovery process. And a lot of it has to do with you being the instrument yourself. So I think that's just another comment to that as well. And I agree with Antonia. I think the more people that can really be expanding upon the system and helping add to the ecosystem helps us all understand different aspects of it. And our sneaky goal, like the thing that we really want to sneak in there, is for you to use this as personal growth and help other people use it for personal growth. Like that's really why we do what we do, is we hope this can be a tool, an access point that can help you and other people grow. And the moment it stops doing that, we'll find a different tool that does, because that's the goal of what we're actually passionate about.
Yeah. I'm in South Africa. Is there an alternative option without the live training, as I would not be able to attend in 2021 just yet? So to complete the process, the live event is a big piece of completing the whole process. And also there's a lot available in the digital component. So it's just it's a decision you have to make.
It would be kind of like training to be a dentist and only studying the books or the digital information, and you never actually get to like clean or work on people's teeth, or a doctor or a surgeon. This is much more like that. And so the live event is that practical element. So you're missing a big piece of the application if you're unable to come to a live event. However, if you did sign up, you could come to any future live event that's scheduled, and we do them every 6 months. So you would just have a ticket to the live event that you're able to come to in the future. Yeah. So that's an option. If you want to take that, we don't have very many people that do that because they usually intend to come to a live event. But if you're in a location or a situation where that's impossible, that's an option for you.
Is there an accreditation that's a usable part related to a degree if used on a professional
We're
level?
working on it right now.
Mhm.
We're working on building some kind of accredited program that we could put in place to have people that are accredited.
But we don't have an accreditation that would go towards a college course.
That's correct.
No. So we're working on an accreditation, but it's not yet usable for a college course. So if that's part of how you're vetting it, then the answer is no on that one. But we are working on an accredited course right now. All right. So I think we've answered
Can you enroll
the
if you
live
can't come to the live event?
events. Yeah, you can still enroll. Again, that's something that you have to choose, but it's the live event piece is definitely a big part of it. Is there a reduced price for online content only? No, the course really assumes that you are going to be coming to a live event at some point. So if a person goes through the digital portion but has not yet come to a live event, they basically hold a ticket for it until they come. And so that's the assumption. All right. If I can't make it to the live event, can I still sign up now and then attend the next live event? Absolutely. Right. You basically have, you have your ticket for whenever you're able to come. Travel due to COVID. Is it worth it to sign up now or better to wait for the next round? And is there any way I can give a live event without physically being there? Can I get to the accreditation without physically attending a live event? Again, the live event is a big piece of it. And also, if for some reason COVID makes it impossible at that time, we will certainly accommodate for that and do a digital version, which will not be complete. But we will go through a digital component in that week.
This is tough for me to be like, no, you can't just do the digital.
I
Because
know.
like I want to say yes,
I
right?
know.
Like my heart is like wanting to say yes. But I think we've through experience realized just how powerful the 1-2 punch is.
Mhm.
The digital course and a live event in conjunction. That yeah, it's just something we can't say yes to.
Yep. Okay. I'm wondering if this course makes space for connecting to a spiritual element through profiling. In other words, something beyond the practical element of profiling. So it's near and dear to our heart to incorporate a spiritual element into almost everything that we do. That said, this is skill development, and we encourage people to apply it to whatever makes sense for them. Our friend Oranio has a fantastic quote. He says, spiritual work without psychological work is dangerous. Psychological work without spiritual work is incomplete. And so we highly recommend that people don't just use this in a psychological way, that they understand the growth components of it, and that the growth components of it are part of the spiritual component of it. And there are people who use it on all sorts of applications, including a spiritual bent. So if you want to use it in that way, we encourage it very much so.
I'm seeing a question coming up soon. About California.
Oh, yeah. If COVID's not an issue, I want to go to a live event. Could I start the program now and do the live event later? Yes, absolutely. If you want to start the process now and be part of this current class now and then do the live event in the spring of 2021, that's totally appropriate.
Bottom line is you can be flexible when you come to the live event, but you need to come at some point in the future. And the sooner, the better, because you're going to connect the learning you're doing digitally with an actual live experience. And the experience is the thing that connects it for you practically.
Do you need to have finished a college degree to apply? Nope, you do not. You can come from any, we love autodidactical people. So please come regardless of whether or not you finished a degree. That is not a concern at all. Let's see. Let's see. Have you officially written off California as a location in the future because of their high taxes?
I joke
hear
that I
Joe
do.
Complain once in a while.
I love what's crazy. I love California.
I know. I'm actually from California.
It's just the regulations and the taxes are so high. It's just always all this red tape and stuff. So
yeah.
I bitch about it, but the long story short, Los Angeles or San Francisco's, they're great, and San Diego, they're great locations to go to.
Yeah.
So it's a possibility.
It's a possibility.
Let's put it that way.
But I wouldn't bank on it.
probably Nevada or Arizona would be more likely because they're a little more friendly to business. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I grew up in Oregon, so we talk about possibly going to Portland. We'll see. Have you ever had attorneys in these classes? Did they ever get back to you about how it adds value? I'm very interested and think it would be helpful, but I don't know if it'd be helpful enough to justify the time cost. You know what? I'm trying to think if we have had. I want to say we have, but I don't remember specifically actually. So I'm gonna actually default to no because I don't remember specifically, but I want to say that we have.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I don't remember the feedback, unfortunately. So I'm sorry I can't help you with that.
I don't remember a person that's
Yeah.
But it could be possible. I don't know.
Yeah. We've had over 300 students and they don't always tell us their professions.
Over the course of 7 years.
Is this 100% MBTI focused, or will there be panels of other systems like Enneagram, and how might that tie into your understanding of type? Okay, so let's pretend it's 100% Myers-Briggs, and also we almost always have an element of Enneagram. We highly recommend that people don't try to master two systems at the same time, though. We really, really, really recommend that people focus on one system and mastering it, particularly in profiling, before they move on to another one. And also, if you do have a strong grasp of Myers-Briggs, oftentimes Enneagram adds a flavor to the profiling session, and it might help answer why somebody is very much appearing to be a certain personality type, but not pinging all of your archetypes. For example, really odd combinations of Myers-Briggs and Enneagram types have manifest and showed up, and those people almost always look a little different, a little odd and difficult to profile in the Myers-Briggs system. So we do add a component, an element, sort of like a lot of I would say it's like bonus content around the Enneagram, but we do recommend that you focus on the one system while you're mastering it, and only pepper in the other one when you feel like you have a strong grasp.
Cool.
Yep. All right. We are applying tomorrow. Cool. That's awesome. Awesome, Rebecca and David. We're very excited. Okay. I can see you're really needing to bend your knees through this time, and the value of a live event is so clear to me. Still wanting to ask about a scenario where it's safe for some participants to get to Pittsburgh within a drive or a day trip and the event happens, but for others it's not yet safe. Will it be possible to participate in a live event in a virtual way, or would a separate live virtual event get organized? Or in that case, would we just wait for the next event? So as mentioned, if you can't come to this one, you have an automatic ticket to the next. And there will be a digital version if nobody can come. If I don't know if we're going to be able to have the technology to live stream it. But here's the challenge. Even if we can live stream it,
you wouldn't see much because people are broken out.
Yeah,
exercises
there's so many workshops and breakout sessions and so much of that engagement that it would be hard to do a virtual version of it. So
it'd be like a camera in the back of the room, and you just kind of see small pods of people doing exercises
all the time.
A lot. I mean, there's teaching. There's
Mm-hmm.
some teaching element on stage, and also there's a lot of those exercise elements.
So if we have to do a live stream, we can talk about what that might look like, and also you would still want to come to the next one.
The likelihood would, and I think you alluded to this in here, Christine, the likelihood would be that we would need to do a separate digital on the side of the live event. So let's say, for example, we got closer and the United States is wide open. We've got everybody from the United States that's able to come, but for some reason, the United States won't allow flights from Europe to come in. We at that point would have to evaluate a way to give some digital training during that time period. Maybe not the same week, but maybe the week before or after, or somewhere around there, for people that are maybe outside of the country that couldn't come to that live event because of like legal reasons or structural reasons. We'll have to kind of play that by ear. I don't want to make any promises, any direction right now, but just know that our intent is to deliver value at that time period for you.
Always.
In some type of a live way, whether it's digital or in person.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the priority is to have you at the live event in person. And also we want to work with you and provide other value outside of that if it's not possible for that.
Right.
So having a separate digital event, maybe a 3-day event or something, it won't be able to cover some of the embodiment stuff. Mm-hmm. We can cover other things around profiling and typology kind of to sate you until you can get to a real live event.
Right.
Something like that could possibly happen. And we'd probably do it outside of the actual live event. So we could be on the camera like this and really engage with you directly. So you have that experience with us here.
Yep.
That's probably what we would intend to do.
Yeah.
Again, there's a lot of unknowns from our side too in this. We're assuming everything's going to open up here in the United States. Things are open right now. Like we could run a live event if we wanted to today, following safety precautions, especially in our state that we live in, which is where we're running this event. So everything's open. We could do a live event as of now. Again, we don't know if the legal systems will shut things down between now and November, but if we had to run it today, we'd have that capacity to do that. Yeah. Following the guidelines that are in place.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I might have missed this earlier, but is the cost of the live event included in the tuition, or is the live event an additional cost? It's all included. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously, hotel and flight would be on your side.
Right.
But the event would be a part of the tuition.
That's right. All right. Are there types that are more likely to take profiling class? Yes, actually, if you've ever been in a room filled with INFJs, it's a very interesting experience. And
INTJs.
so I would say INFJs and INTJs. INTPs and INFPs are our four biggest attendees, but we also have sensors become birds of paradise, by the way. If you're a sensor and you're thinking about showing up, like everybody just fawns all over you. But we have some ISFPs.
You're like a rock star.
You are. We've had some SJs. And there are actually, what's interesting is I would say that there's more ENTPs and ENFPs going to the live event than are usually in our digital programs, because this is a live event structure. So we actually have more ENTs. So mostly intuitives, but it is a very odd experience for a lot of INFJs and INTJs to be in a room full of people of their type, because that doesn't happen very often.
You won't see very many ISTPs or ESTPs, ESF, like any SPs, very, very few. There's a few, but very few. SJs a little bit more, but then the intuitive side, you're going to get, you're going to be around a lot of intuitives. For good or bad.
Would the accreditation be redeemable for past profiler courses? So the accreditation would require certain learning that's part of what we're constructing right now. But it would also require the profiling, like the Profiler 101 course, to be a part of it. So anybody who's gone through Profiler 101 would already have that piece of the accreditation complete. So it would work for anybody who's gone through it already, but then they would also need further learnings to be able to complete the process.
Accreditation.
Yep.
It's such an introverted sensing topic.
I know.
It's like our inferior, right?
I know,
So like
I know.
all these things.
All right. So, you two are awesome. Longtime listener. Even got my mom and later my dad to like Myers-Briggs on a car trip one time. Very cool, Madison. Thanks for sharing us with your family. Have you ever encountered personality type system using cues? What's your opinion about it? If so, I'd recommend to look for a YouTube channel called Casual Cognitions if you're considered. All right, cool. I actually haven't heard of that, but I will definitely check it out. We generally don't use as much physical cues, if that's what it's based on, and body language. We're almost always looking for what we call the side door into a person's cognition. We are using a deep, resonant understanding of how cognitive functions work in each position of the person's stack, cognitive function stack or CAR model in each type. A deep understanding of how each cognitive function fits in that particular position to be able to hear for cues. Because the challenge is that when a person's talking about how they're wired, it's like a fish in water. They don't even have language for it, right? They're not sure how to articulate or express this. You're looking for what is effectively a languageless place for them. But they are using cues and they are telling you all the time how they're wired. You just need to get sensitive for hearing it. So that's mostly what we do, is we dive into the nuance and intricacies of the functions in each of these positions to be able to listen for them as the person is giving you clues that we might miss, because you kind of have to be a sensitive receptor to be able to hear all the little notes of the songs of each of the types.
Well, and the other challenge with looking for visual cues or body language is it's one-sided. What we like about this is it's co-creative. You're creating an experience with the other person in a session, a profiling session, which actually brings them into the experience with you. And you're discovering, I mean, it's a discovery process together. And when you're just looking at cues from a distance, that can be nice for typing, like I mentioned earlier. And you're just kind of casually guessing maybe a person's type. But when you're really profiling, you're actually helping that person discover themselves. And that's really what we're all about, is teaching and helping guide to the skill of doing that with another person. Because that's where the magic lies in a profiling session, is really digging into the meat of how the person ticks, helping them create self-awareness, and then help them learn about themselves and how they can grow, how they're wired uniquely and individually, which we think is really exciting. So thank you for your questions.
Yeah.
We want to invite you to join this class of profiler training. If this is resonating with you, if you're like, man, this sounds like something I might be really into, we believe in this program. We've done it for many years now. Every year we calibrate it and dial it in even more. We make it better and better and better as we go. We think it's a fantastic program, obviously, because we're offering it.
It's filled with amazing people.
Yeah.
It's hard to communicate how special the community is.
Well, that's how we measure ourselves, right? Like if we're attracting quality people, we're like, we must be doing something good.
Yes.
That's kind of the metric we
Yep.
use.
Yep.
And the type of people that are attracted are high caliber
Awesome.
people that show up with generosity of spirit, wanting to learn, wanting to contribute. I think you'd enjoy it. I think you'd have a really good experience learning this with us. And it's entering into a different relationship with us than maybe just listening to the podcast or getting one of the other digital programs that we offer. This is very experiential. It's very hands-on, a lot more personal access. And we believe it will be a good experience for you if it's something you're interested in.
So if you are interested, head over to personalityhacker.com/profiler training. That will give you all of the information. And then there's also an application with a small application fee. If you end up not getting accepted, then of course the application fee is returned to you. But
it's just to show you're serious, like $25.
It's just to show you're serious. That's right, exactly. And that should give you all the information you're needing. But if you have more questions and we didn't answer them, please feel free to shoot us an email at info@personalityhacker.com. And we will do our best to answer you as fast as possible, because we know it's a small window of making this decision. We know that you probably have a lot to take into consideration since it is an investment of time and resource. And so we will do our best to answer you as soon as possible so that you can make the best decision for you. And again, we don't want to do the hard sell and the twisting your arm and scarcity. But again, why wouldn't instantly improve vision not be at the top of your list, right? So if this is the time period where something like this is what is required for instantly improved vision, we highly recommend that you follow your intuition, follow your gut, and join this program.
All right. Hope to see you in Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Have a great night.
Yes.
Peace out. We'll talk soon.
Guys. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.